Welcome to another edition of Walton Entertainment. Today we'll have more news, information, and entertainment from your local hometown.
So ladies and gentlemen, today we'll be talking to a host of federal agencies in hopes of having a very robust conversation about ways to avoid scams and abuse and fraud, as well as best practices to take full advantage of the programs that are offered by Social Security and Medicare. With a group this size, I'm sure there are several of you who may have run into some issues in the past, or maybe you're currently dealing with something that has to do with a federal agency. And I just want to let you know that we're here to help. So we'll just do this for a moment. Let me see if our staff members can raise their hand, whoever's in the room. We've got Carrie here in the back corner, and we've got Beth coming through the door right here. Yay. And at any point, especially at the end of this this program, if you have an issue you're dealing with a federal agency and you need some help, make sure you see one of these two ladies. This is what they do 5 days a week, all day long, is they're helping people. 7 days a week, okay. They're our customer service branch, really, of the federal government, and they're here to help. So I want to begin with a panel. And this panel is focused on how to detect and avoid scams that target seniors. So I'm going to introduce those panelists. Y'all can come up as I introduce you. But joining us on this panel first is Special Agent Michael Barushko. And he's with TIGTA. I don't know if you're familiar with this name, but that's short for the U.S. Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration. And you can grab one of these seats there. We also have with us Senior Attorney Gideon, let me not botch this, Sinison, right? Sinison? He's from the Federal Trade Commission, and that office that's in Atlanta there, so thank you for being here. And then our last panelist is Communications and Outreach Coordinator Sean Conroy. He's with the Consumer Protection Division of the Georgia Attorney General's Office. So please join me in giving them all a warm welcome. And I want to make sure we need to grab a mic. Right there? Okay, perfect. I'll grab that in a minute. Thank you. So thank you all so much for joining us for our Senior Protection Panel. To begin, perhaps if you could just spend a minute or two just telling us a little bit more about you and your position and then the agency that you work for. So go ahead. We'll start with TIGTA.
Can you hear me? Yes. You can hear me. You're working. Well, I'd like to thank the City of Loganville, Congressman Heiss, for inviting us to this forum. It's a great forum. We look forward to giving you some hopefully valuable information that you didn't know before. I'm Special Agent Mike Barushko with the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration. Most people have never heard of that agency. Just so you know, we have oversight of the Internal Revenue Service. So most people are like, okay with that. The tax administration part of our job is what I'm going to speak to you today about. One thing that's rampant today is IRS impersonation scheme. If I ask for a show of hands, I can probably assume the majority of you have received a telephone call from somebody claiming to be from the IRS. Yes. Yeah. Anybody not got such a call? Okay. I have an actual recording of it so you can get an example of what they do. But I'm going to explain what we investigate, what the IRS will and will not do, and what to do if you do receive one of these calls. I've been a special agent for 15 years with the federal government. Prior to that, I was a police officer. I've been in law enforcement going on 31 years now. So I've been with the Department of Treasury for about 8 years. Prior to that, I was with the Secret Service for about 6-7 years.
Thank you.
So, hi, I'm Gideon Sinison. I'm an attorney with the Federal Trade Commission, and I volunteered to come here because I wanted to be one of the younger people. Thank you for having me. We are the nation's consumer protection agency, we also are the nation's privacy agency. We represent, I'm with the Southeast Regional Office of the FTC based in Atlanta. We have about 12 attorneys And we cover Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, about 60 million people. So we have about 5 million people per attorney. So we don't take individual cases, but one of our missions is to go out and educate people about how to recognize scams and what steps to take if you are faced with a scam. So I've been with the agency about 12 years. Before that, I was a tank officer, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have today about scams.
Testing. And good afternoon. My name is Sean Conroy. I'm with the Attorney General's Consumer Protection Division, and it is great to see this crowd today. And we too appreciate Congressman Heiss and Mayor Martinez and all the elected officials having us out to share some information about consumer scams and what our organizations do. Our office, the Consumer Protection Division at the Attorney General's office, is the state-level consumer protection law enforcement organization. We have a staff of just over 40 individuals headquartered in Atlanta that work every day to try to stop the scam artists, and we have an intake center where we take calls, letters, emails, faxes, Monday through Friday. There's more information about us in a book that we produced that I'd encourage you all to take home with you today, and you can take extra copies, called the Georgia Consumer Protection Guide for Older Adults. It has information about scams, elder abuse, important issues for this generation. So I'm looking forward to the conversation we're going to have. Oh, got a malfunctioning chair.
Yes, we're sorry. All right, we'll work on that chair in a moment, but you probably want to stay standing because what we want to do is we're going to start with Special Agent Baruchio, and you mentioned to us about identity theft. That's really what you're dealing with when you're seeing these IRS schemes. Will you talk to us a little bit more about that? And I know you have a presentation.
So yeah, identity theft, as you well know, is probably one of the most popular crimes now because you can do it behind a computer. You don't have to put on a mask and walk into a bank anymore. You can just sit behind a computer and make just as much money. So identity theft is rampant. And what I'm going to give is a brief presentation of stuff that you can do to try to protect you from identity theft. It's not all inclusive. The FTC actually has some wonderful links on their website, so I'll defer to him as some of the specifics, but it's good to know some of these things to do and what to do. But as you see, just since 2010, the amount of identity theft cases reported has almost doubled in the United States. I would imagine it's even more so now than it was then, the last reporting. But you can see, when you get anybody been a victim of identity theft, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. You have to go through a bunch of hurdles just to clear up your own name. And so you did absolutely nothing wrong, but you're sitting there having to call the banks, call the creditors, make sure you contact the credit bureaus. There's a lot of work involved when you're a victim of identity theft, no fault of your own. But there are some things you can do on the front end to try to mitigate or minimize your chances of becoming a victim. Now, who has been a victim from one of the major compromises with, like Equifax, you name it? Okay, I have two. OPM got hacked. So they got my information, Equifax, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Anthem. Anybody got that? They got hacked too. So my Social Security number and about $1.95 will get you a cup of coffee because it's worthless because somebody has my stuff out there. I would assume your information is out there floating around for sale. Just assume that and just monitor your credit frequently so that you can check to see if there's any spurious accounts that you're not familiar with that you did not know. And so you can do that pretty easily through the free credit reports you can get through the credit bureau. If you do it strategically, you can get one every 4 months for free. Don't order all three of them at the same time. You get one from Equifax now, 4 months later go to Experian, 4 months later go to TransUnion, then you can start all over. You can really do it every 3 months. And then your year's up and you can get your new free credit report. So I would recommend that. But as you see, the IRS impersonation scheme is since I'd say 4 or 5 years, has been rampant. We've had 2.4 million contacts to us at TIGTA. And TIGTA, like I said, we have oversight of the Internal Revenue Service, but we also do impersonation. So if somebody tries to impersonate an IRS employee and or use IRS logos or seals to defraud people, that's our jurisdiction. So that's how we got involved. And you see, there's been a bunch of money sent. And I've had every rampant. I mean, I've had elderly, y'all were targets. I've had IRS employees that were victims, believe it or not, government employees, police officers, because when you get that phone call and somebody says, this is the IRS, you owe us money, what happens? Most people, yeah, they're scared. IRS is feared amongst most people. So you get that call and you're like, oh good Lord, what do I do? And so these people get you on the phone, they try to get you on the hook, and they try to keep you on the phone, and they'll tell you, don't hang up. This is the Internal Revenue Service. We have a police officer coming for your arrest because you owe us money. And you're like, oh Lord, what do I do? I can tell you at the end of this thing, you'll know what to do. You hang up. That's exactly what you do. And please tell everybody you know. Yes, sir.
Now, the contact with the IRS, is that exclusively through the mail?
That's a good question. I'm going to cover that real quickly. So I will go through that. The IRS will typically, almost a majority of the time, first contact you by mail so that you will know, you'll usually meet with a person so that you know who you're contacted later by. So you'll either go to the office or they'll come in the field to meet with you at your residence or business, and then that way, when Mike Baruccio calls on the phone, you know who it is. But the IRS is 99.9% of the time not going to cold call you like they do. So if you get those calls, just hang up. Say, come and arrest me. Come get me. Okay? So phishing is one way identity theft happens. Anybody familiar with phishing? You get an email, and it has a little hyperlink that you push, and it asks for your personal information. It could be from a bank. We have some examples here. That's a real phishing email. That looks legitimate. If you're a Citibank customer, you may click that link and put your personal information in there. Don't do it. Unless you initiated the contact and went to the website yourself, don't put any personal information on these websites. Don't hit those hyperlinks because they can get your information. Okay? The next one, going back, is one from the IRS. This is a spoof email. You click that button, it takes you to their website, not the IRS. That looks pretty official, but it's not. So if you get these, put them in your trash, just like when I tell you, you get the call from the IRS impersonator, hang up on them. Dumpster diving. Anybody knows what that is? The trash is valuable stuff. So I would recommend, you'll see, get a shredder. Great investment, okay? Because you do have people, I've had suspects I've arrested on federal investigations that used to drive around and pull people's trash and dig through it to get personal information. So please, please, please shred anything with personal information, account information, tax documents, you name it. So I'm here to talk about the impersonation scheme. It's rampant. I get the calls. I arrest the people, and I get them all the time. Okay? Typically, not all the time, you can tell they have a very heavy accent. A majority of these suspects are coming from overseas in India. They barely speak English, but these people are still hooking victims on the line because people are afraid of the IRS. So they'll call. Sometimes they get information from you, from those various methods, stealing your mail, identity theft, you name it. So your information is out there for sale. So they may know the last 4 of your social, they may know your whole social, they may know your address, they may know a lot of stuff about you. It doesn't matter. If you get these calls, hang up. If you have a doubt, I got a number you can call to the IRS to verify if the IRS is actually inquiring about you. But please, please, please spread the word. You'll get these text messages from a missed call. If you let it go to voicemail, this is the IRS. Call now. This is an example. We'll push, this is what it sounds like. This is one of them.
This is Officer Daniel Wiseman calling you from the Legal Department of Internal Revenue Services. This is in reference to a criminal lawsuit filed against you. Your case number is CF 93271. The moment you receive this message, I need you to return the call. The issue at hand is extremely time sensitive. The hotline to my desk is 202-793-6694. I repeat it, 202-793-6694. Don't disregard this message and you return the call. Now, if you don't return the call, and I don't hear from your attorney either, then the only thing I can do is wish you a good luck as the situation unfolds on you. Goodbye.
Sounds pretty intimidating, doesn't it? Okay? Do not return that call, and they'll spoof the numbers. They'll come up with a 1-800 IRS number, so you look at it, it's like, oh, it's in 1040, that's the number. Anybody familiar with spoofing? You can make caller ID look like anything through a computer program that you want it to. So I can put 202 to make it look like it's coming from Washington, D.C. I can put the 1-800 number for IRS up there to make it look like it's coming from them. They are not, I repeat, not going to call you and give you this message. If you get it and you pick it up, hang up. If you want to entertain them, say come and get it. I don't care, but the IRS is not going to come and arrest you based on this. So this is what happened. It evolved. At first, these people were asking and demanding like MoneyGram and some kind of wire payment from Western Union. Western Union and all of them got pretty hip to this scheme and shut it down. So about 5-6 years ago, I started getting complaints from victims that they sent $25,000 in iTunes cards, and I'm like, something's got to be wrong with this complaint. It was true. And I was like, why are they doing iTunes cards? Apparently, and I'm not as privy on this as I should be, but apparently there's a huge black market in China. They sell iTunes cards on the dark web. So once they get the iTunes card from you, and you give them $50,000 worth of iTunes cards, they sell it on the dark web for pennies on the dollar. But in these impoverished areas like India, that's a lot of money. So they're willing to do it. So the IRS is never, ever, ever going to cold call you. They're not going to take payment by credit card over the phone. Now in person, that's different. They're not going to ask for a money wire transfer on the phone. Gift cards, store cards, Walmart cards, iTunes cards. The IRS is not going to request payment through those methods. If you get it, hang up. Also, threaten arrest. IRS is not going to threaten to arrest you for not paying your taxes on the telephone. They're not going to say we're coming out if you don't. If you hang up, you're going to get arrested. We got police en route. Or if you're, have some immigration issues, they'll use that. Immigration's coming for you. And they will not send you a blank email. Now, you may have correspondence after you've had contact with the IRS representative, but they're not going to demand it. We've actually had some pretty good success even going after the big operations in India. We had this arrest a couple of years ago where we actually took down one of the call centers in India. But they do have people in the United States operating as mules, and so we've actually gone after them as well very successfully. So if you get contacted, there's certain things you can do. If you're a victim or you know a victim, have them call and contact TIGTA. We have on the website a place where you can put your information, and a special agent will be in contact with you to get the information from you as far as what kind of payment, who you spoke to, what kind of phone number, and we're actively working these. But please, please, please remember, if you leave here not knowing anything, leave here remembering, never, ever, ever give them any personal information over the phone. They're not going to cold call you. They're not going to threaten to arrest you. Yes, sir.
Yes, actually, I was going to say that we're going to be interactive. So at any point, if you have a question, you can raise your hand, and we actually have a mic. So Abby will bring a mic over. Will you run over here, Abby? Do you have the mic?
Yeah, my question is, of the ones who actually
out loud.
how many actually spend time with kids?
We've actually had some very good success, not only locally, but in our district, Florida. We just had recent convictions. They were talking about several years in prison, federal prison. The federal time is not like the state time. So when we go after them, we're going after them. Number one, this audience right here is an enhancement. So if they're victimizing the elderly at sentencing, that's an enhancement. So these people are getting significant time in federal prison. We had one that just got triple digits, like 114 years in federal prison.
Percentage basis of those, are you saying 20%, 50%, 75%?
I don't have those numbers.
Because I'm retired. What you see down in Kroger is not Western Union. I work for Western Union. I retired from the real Western Union. Had 27 years service. We've had this problem since day one.
Yeah, it has been a problem. But that's why we're trying to get the word out. Don't send money to these people. Contact us. Or if you have any questions, that's the number for the IRS. 1-800-829-1040. 1-800-829-1040. What did I tell you? What do? Get the call. First thing you do, hang up.
Very good.
Thank you. Don't send any money to these people, please.
Thank you. All right, and again, say the number one more time because it is hard to see.
Yeah.
1-800.
I'll get back. So for the IRS, if you want to check to see if you have a balance due, call 1-800-829-1040. 1-800-829-1040. For TIGA, we're actually on the internet. You can TIGA.gov. On the upper right-hand corner, there's a place to put your IRS impersonation information in there. But our phone number is 1-800-366-4484. 1-800-366-4484.
Thank you.
Creative artists can offer you a wide range of video production. Call the experts and discuss your project today, whether it's your special event or your company. Creative Artist, 770-267-7368. Creative Artist produces this program you're watching. Call Creative Artist today, 770-267-7368. Creative Artist, they'll put you in the spotlight.
In 1953, two hearts met. Meet Bobby and Frank, who've seen some good times and some not so good times. But they've stayed together and still married after 66 years.
She lived in Decatur. I lived in College Park. And as long as that car would run, I'd go to Decatur. Sometimes the car wouldn't run, so I hitchhiked. When I was working on the car, she'd ride the bus. She worked and she rode the bus out to the house. Now I get the car fixed and take her home. Take engagement ring and get engaged. And that was somewhere around early September or October, I don't remember. And then we set the date for 9/11. That was on, I think it was on a Saturday. Her grandfather was a minister, and he married us in his house. We moved in with our grandparents for a while. Then built the house in College Park, and we moved there and stayed 25 years. And from College Park, we went to Fayette County and lived 10 years. She wanted to retire in the mountains, so we go to the mountains and find a house and moved to LJ and spent 10 years. And arthritis got me down, so I moved to back in the middle of my 3 boys and girl. And we've been there now for 14 years. Our first house that we moved into, I was working with Good Brothers Poultry, delivering chickens. And one day at lunchtime, I come home and found her ex-boyfriend there. And he was, oh man, it shocked him. I mean, he didn't know. I don't normally go home for lunch, but I did that day. And he was an exterminator for bugs. And he was there. I just come by to visit. Yeah, I know what he's up to. But anyway, he stayed a few more minutes and he left. He never did come back no more. And we lost contact. And he was a good friend. We was in the church, and the preacher said, I want to ask some questions about some of you that's been married a long time. And he started off with, anybody that's been married 30 years, and a bunch of them held their hand up, and he asked them all questions, and they answered them. Then he said, anybody over 40 years, and they started up and asked us all the questions. Then he got around to anybody over 50 years, and there was, I think, 3 couples in there. And the other 2 couples stood up and told them why. And the other 2 stood up and told them why. And then they got around to me, and I said, keeping your mouth shut. Everybody in that church started dying laughing. And she turned around and looked at her friend, and then she said, oh man. She packed her bag to, about a month ago? About a month ago, she packed her bags, and where are you going? I don't know. I'm going somewhere. She got in the car, gone about 15 minutes, and come back and unpacked. Oh, I just buy me an old folks home and move into it. She's still at home.
But he's been so good to me. And that's what marriage is all about. Not the fussing and not the fighting and not the getting back together, but it's the making up that is important. And if anybody is having trouble, sit down and talk about it. And you can get over it. And this is one of the things that we have always been able to do since we get mad at each other. But we, everybody has their problems. But he's always took care of everything. He has. He's been a wonderful husband. And we've had 4 kids, and I wouldn't change a thing. I really wouldn't. Because we had some bad times. I mean, everybody does. But trust is one of the most important things in a marriage. If you can't trust each other, you can't get through it. And so we had to, of course, we had our little arguments, you know, but never did we, I think I left him one time, didn't I? Twice, he said. But I know that we've been together a long time, and he can't go nowhere now. He gotta stay with me now. And we love each other. That's what counts.
Well, let's start from the top.
Okay.
Ashley and I met in Louisville, Kentucky at the National Quartet Convention in 2006.
Yes.
And let's see, how do we say this? Love at first sight?
Sort
I
of.
guess? Even though that's what everybody else was saying,
Right.
not really what we thought at that time. And but we met each other on a showcase. Funny story is, I thought she was married. I didn't even know that she wasn't married until we actually got home from Quartet Convention. But I saw her, and I was single, and come to find out she was single. And she lived in Alabama, I lived in Tennessee, but we made that communication once we got home. And so that was in September. By February of 2007, we got engaged. And then in 2007, in December the 8th, we tied the knot and got married. So here we are, nearly 12 years later.
Yeah.
You know, I was born and raised in gospel music, and I've been in this all of my life. There's been a lot of changes, but I can say this, in every genre of music and really everything in the world, there's so many changes. But the fact is that nothing lasts forever but God.
Right.
And everything may change, but God will never change. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. So I say that to say this: the gospel message within this gospel music, it still has the message to change hearts and change life. So we may be changing in style, there may be changes in performances, there may be changes even in the appearance, but the gospel is the same, and it remains the same.
You know, the Bible says there's nothing new under the sun.
Right.
So in all of the years and things, I think people try and do different things, but as long as there's hungry people and people to listen, there will be gospel music.
There'll always be a gospel song to sing.
Are you in need of tractor work, bush hogging, grading, cleaning, sod installs, and drainage repair? Then you need Bold Springs Landscape Solutions. Bold Springs Landscape Solutions is a licensed, insured, and certified landscape solutions company. Their services include grading and drainage, bush hogging and clearing work, as well as fencing, landscape, and sod installation. Contact Bold Springs Landscape Solutions today.
What better way to welcome in the fall season than with the annual Autumn Fest? So come and enjoy some live entertainment. There's plenty of activities for the kids and around 200 vendors offering crafts, promoting local businesses, as well as food to tempt your taste buds.
We love coming to Autumn Fest each year, my kids and I. We love all the different vendors we have here. The food is phenomenal. It's just a good time for all of our family, and to see everybody here at Loganville. It's just a joy.
Please come out and join us. You just cannot imagine how much fun you can have. Meet lots of new friends. I've made many friends over the years at the festival.
It's all happening at the Autumn Fest in downtown Loganville on Main Street. Saturday, October 19th, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. We'll see you there.
Welcome to another edition of Through the Camera. I'm your photographer, Darrell Everidge, and behind me, you can see it's the Ferris wheel here in Atlanta. We're going to get on top and see how far we can see once we're up there, sky high in Atlanta. So go grab the family, grab a camera, and let's go grab some memories. Alright, so the nerves has kicked in. We're on the Ferris wheel. They're stopping it every few seconds, letting other passengers on. So we're one of the first ones to get on. So this is going to take a few minutes. It goes around 4 revolutions, and each revolution, I timed it before I got on, is 2 minutes. So, you know, we're going to be on here for a few minutes while they let people on and off. So that adds to the time, and we're pretty high up, and I'm getting kind of nervous.
Located at the south end of Centennial Park in downtown Atlanta, you'll find this giant Skyview Ferris wheel. It's set up to thrill everyone. I was a little apprehensive to get on, but once the ride started, it was amazing. This Ferris wheel is almost 20 stories high, and you get to see all of downtown Atlanta and the surrounding area when you're on the very top. It's amazing.
Out here we ran into a lot of other street musicians. We had a lot of some positive interactions with the other musicians and some negative. We had a negative response from the police at first, but eventually they got used to us, and we've actually befriended a lot of them. My friend was playing the Bad Boys Cops theme and got a lot of you know, I guess that won some of the police over, but it's been a pretty interesting experience. It's lucrative. You can make a living off of it. And yesterday, yeah, we made at least $200 yesterday.
Wow, it's been a fantastic day today. Let's take a look back through the photo album.
Wow, it's been another great adventure. Thanks for tagging along. We've had fun doing all the great things we do every weekend. I want to thank you guys for tuning in and watching all these episodes of Through the Camera. Till the next time, I remind you to grab your family, grab a camera, and go out there and grab some memories. Today we're off to a plantation, an historic site here in Jones County, Georgia. It's the Gerald Plantation. We hope to see all types of great stuff from the old days, way back. We've got our camera, and we're going to take some great pictures and pass them on to you. So check it out.
Let's see what we can see here at the Gerald Plantation today.
Nestled in the red clay hills of Georgia, this cotton plantation was owned by a single family for more than 140 years. It survived General Sherman's march to the sea, typhoid fever, emancipation, Reconstruction, the cotton boll weevil, and the advent of stream power and a transition from farming to forestry.
This is the outhouse. It's large in comparison to most outhouses in its day, as it has a place for 3 folks. 2 on each end are a little bigger, and the one in the middle is small. That's where the little stinker goes.
In 1847, John Fitzgerald built a simple heart pine house typical of most plantations and made many of the furnishings visitors see today. In 1860, the 600-acre plantation was farmed by 39 slaves. After the Civil War, John increased his land to nearly 1,000 acres farmed by former slaves. As John aged, most workers left and the slave houses deteriorated and finally disappeared.
This is the house from 1895 where the Gerald family grew his family. 12 children were raised in this house. Here's the dining area where we have the safe where we put pies, but today we have some preserves in there, very nice. The kitchen was located just beyond the dining area. I guess all the little stinkers would sleep. Over in the other area, more bedroom.
After John's death, his son Dick Gerald gave up teaching to return to the farm, and in 1895 he built a small house for his family that grew to 12 children. Dick diversified the farm, adding a sawmill, cotton gin, grist mill, shingle mill, planter, sugarcane press, syrup evaporator, workshop barn, and outbuildings.
Just relaxing at the 1847 house that the Gerald built for 7 of his children. This is quite a bit bigger than the other house that we looked at, but nice relaxing front porch, side porch. Then you have your sewing room and bedroom, kitchen. It's just all the amenities are here. So this is 500 pounds of cotton right here. We're in the cotton gin, or the cotton factory, or the cotton barn, or the cotton house, built in 1895 by one of the Geralds. They sold a bale of cotton for $2. Now this is 500 pounds of cotton. This is all that's left, just these rocks from a tenant house from the early 1850s. What a great trip this was. Another back road treasure. Taking those off roads to the back roads. Always stay out here, whether you can bring a family or a friend. Bring your camera. Just get outside, get on the back roads. Today we've had fun, and we hope you'll have fun. We'll see you next time. I'm Daryl D. You're watching Walton Entertainment.
Welcome to Focus. This segment is an opportunity for us to focus on what matters with people, places, and things. I'm your photographer, Daryl Everidge.
Meet Pat Callahan, a full-time father, a full-time trucker, and a part-time rock and roller, which makes him the busiest man in rock. So Pat, tell us a little bit about how big a part music played in your life growing up.
Well, generationally, and as a populace, you know, being a teenager in the 80s, you're going to be glued to MTV. It's going to be the backdrop in every time you enter anyone's house, and we socialized together in someone's house back then when there was no social media, man. We had to actually hang out. So anytime you're together, even if you're not glued to it, it's the soundtrack. Right? So you have all this epic hairband stuff that's the soundtrack to your life, and despite the stigma connected to it today or whatever, and you can't hear that and not be zapped back to a very vivid memory. So, and you know, I think a generation as a whole, that is how, that's how it, you know, it affected me, but personally, when sort of the metal bands came in, I grew up in a real churchy type environment, and while I wouldn't by any means call myself a good kid, I definitely, everybody in metal had to throw up a pentagram and I would have liked to have enjoyed it, but my own personal qualms wouldn't allow me to. So my sisters were older than me, right? So my first influences were actually their music from their generation, right? Which was the late 70s, right? This is Bad Company, Foghat, you know, Foreigner, the Eagles, Steve Miller. These were all my first really, hey man, this is awesome, you know, influences in music. And it would become apparent later why that's relevant today. Had a guitar since 1985. And if you get in a room with me, I may be able to fool you into thinking that I know how to play a guitar, but I absolutely cannot play a guitar. And even if I do take the discipline to learn something, I can't play and sing it sometime. So I'm unable. The only contribution I can make musically, the only place where I can pitch in is that hairbrush in the bathroom mirror. I gotta sing, man. And so for me, driving was crucial. The day I got my driver's license, I left Cincinnati, Ohio, literally the day, and drove straight to Walhalla, South Carolina, to my uncle's house. I was the first one of us who hang out. I socialized with 6 guys, and we still speak every day. We spoke not every day. When you had to pick up a phone off the wall and call each other, we still kept in touch. We've had reunions, and anyway, I was the first one of us to get a car. So I'm the driver, man. That's my life. My father was a truck driver. I'm one of the fools who wanted to be a truck driver when I was a kid, when I saw Jerry Reed run over those bikes. So understand, I've got no cell phone and thousands and thousands of miles of nothing but music crunk, windows down, right? I can actually credit a lot of those bands I mentioned earlier for saving my life, because truck driving is brutal and getting less so from a fatigue perspective. But I mean, you're really selling a mammoth portion of your life, and sleep deprivation is insane. So you crank the window down, you blast whatever Bad Company in the backdrop, AC/DC in the backdrop, blast that stuff and run those miles, and literally that's what gets you to the next stop. So that's how it's relative to me. And I'm fortunate at this point that people who can play that guitar have enough faith in me to let me get up in front of them and sing. You know what I mean?
Well, what do you think about today's modern rock?
I'm not critical of modern rock. I actually think it's as valid as any generation. It's the voice of a generation, right? And it's testifying. I mean, today's modern rock is some of it, it's all relative, right? Some of it to me is really great, right? I'm just saying it's missing key components, and it's killing itself based on a few people who decide what the populace hears by what they choose to promote.
When do you think music started making that downturn?
I genuinely, I believe it was with the 90s, right? Because rock and roll sort of rebelled against MTV, who was clearly just using formulaic music and squeezing what was sexy about rock and roll out, just like wringing it to death. And meanwhile, we're raising a generation who's got very real issues and nobody's singing about that, right? Everybody's singing just the sexy part of rock and roll, and there's no voice for these folks. And I think that's where the grunge era ushered in the grunge era, and these kids have who would argue that that's some of the greatest rock and roll ever made, right?
So I guess one of the best questions would be the last question, would be digital or vinyl?
That's a good question. Honestly, because of who I am, I have to say digital.
And I guess I was in radio for 15 years. Started in '79 and went on through the '80s, and I was just, vinyl was it. That was the source of media at that point. And I have a real problem with modern artists that's never been on vinyl putting out vinyl.
Right.
I think one of the examples is I'm a big fan of Adele. I do get depressed and drink. Right. I want to hear some Adele.
Right. I totally get it.
But I don't
rock and roll.
I don't want to put on her vinyl album. It's to me.
Dishonest?
They just missed it. Yeah, they missed it. That's all you can say about it.
I couldn't give a fair assessment, because to be honest with you, I haven't had a turntable in years, and I haven't listened to anything new, so I haven't had the experience yet. So I'm not sure, but I do understand what you're saying. I just don't know. I don't know. I think
I think people who buy records today that are trying to buy new records, or new people discovering vinyl, but they're not. They're not really vinyl. I don't know.
That's my question to you. Does the zombie electronica come through? Like, is that what you say comes, like, still on vinyl? The difference is there's almost no electronic production.
Right. And I think that one of the things that I have a problem with is people who collect vinyl now collect it to put it on the wall. It's more decorative. They, hey, look, I have a record. They're not really people who buy it to listen to it, because when I was growing up, that's all you had. We had no choice. I understand that. But I think that it's a misuse of that platform. For me, I just don't want a new artist on vinyl, because it's just, you've never heard their stuff on vinyl.
I could also see from an artist standpoint why they'd want to hear their work on vinyl, because of the influences that they had coming before them. So I could see why they'd want to do it. But and also I have a friend who's exactly like you're talking about, man. Big vinyl collection, but he's not listening to that. You can't help the progression of time and how things change. So I know some people from this generation who are making really good music and appreciate everything about the vinyl era that you do. Genuinely, they get it, and I don't think they're alone. And I think, the dilemma is moral, right? Do you understand that every time you grab that free song, that even somebody, if you was just a friend giving it to you, somebody worked for that. It's hard to look back at the 80s, right, and see all these big rock stars tearing up motel rooms and what have you, right? These guys filthy rich, and associate that with today people who are making music who are having a much harder time, who genuinely need it because they don't have any exposure. So, yeah, man.
And in my opinion, the record companies dropped the ball because they didn't embrace technology soon enough.
I don't know. I to be honest with you, if you think about people, if we're going to use the term people that broadly, I think eventually, even if the record company had embraced it first, someone would have done it. Someone would have came up with it. The actual, frankly, the legislation was what was behind, right? Like the legislation was behind. The record companies could have got ahead of the technology and put the music out. We're going to figure out how to get that free. I mean, that's what people are going to do. And I mean, I'm not even going to exclude myself from that. I'm just going to say that. But I don't intentionally do that. In fact, even my local artists, I buy their albums, I buy the shirt, I pay the cover.
Seriously, Pat, you've been downloading Adele, haven't you?
I do. I'm a closet Adele guy. Actually, I really do dig Adele.
I do.
And I really dig Chris Stapleton, man. But, everybody, in the rock sets, like, what are you doing? But I love that guy's pipes. And he actually wrote an Adele song that I was covering for a while. What is it? If It Hadn't Been for Love. Chris Stapleton wrote that.
Wow.
And does a cool version of it. Anyway. Yeah, I mean, I'm careful not to... I don't want to mix the stuff that happens every generation. Let me tell you what happens every generation. Every generation, the old guys look at this generation and go, this generation, right? That's not... And at the same time, that generation's going, it's your fault.
Yeah.
You old guys did this. So that's going to happen repeatedly over and over. So you have to sift through a lot of that to get to what's consistent and what the actual direction is, where the mistakes are, and how to fix the mistakes and let the natural progression, because the younger generation right now is going to be the old guys at some point and shaking their fists at the generation after them and so on and so forth. But what's their music, right? Are they appropriately being represented by the industry? Is the industry producing their voice, or is the industry producing what they want to sell? And do they just keep buying what they and a whole generation of people making original music like the guys I love right here in Georgia, right here. There are epic bands who are testifying to their existence not being heard. To me, it's ridiculous. It's foolish, and I see people eat it up, swallow it up. I know they love it, right? So that's not a factor. Why is the generation actually? The bigger question on why is the generation robbing artists of music is, why is the industry robbing the generation of its own voice and the music that it produces? Because it's just trying to sell you something, right? That's the biggest travesty right there, if you ask me.
Creative artists can offer you a wide range of video production. Call the experts and discuss your project today, whether it's your special event or your company. Creative Artist, 770-267-7368. Creative Artist produces this program you're watching. Call Creative Artist today, 770-267-7368. Creative Artist, they'll put you in the spotlight. We're right in the middle of summer, and that means it's time to get those portraits done. Summer portraits are so wonderful for families and for individuals. Whether it just be you or your family, it's time to book that summer photo session. Let me turn your summer moments into portrait art. Contact me today at 770-656-5794 or check me out on the web at darylproductions.com.